What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy, me, EJ Stewart, does 2 live streaming shows per day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, and we're coming down to the wire. This is hump day of the final week of 40 Days and 40 Nights. We're going to have a lot of fun. This is going to be a good one today. We're going to be talking about the Lakers and some drama involving JJ Redick and Luka Doncic. Is it a big deal? Is it no deal? Lakers certainly want you to think it's no deal. We'll break that down a little bit. We'll also talk about March Madness coming up, and we heard from Coach K yesterday about how awesome Cam Boozer is and how he thinks Cam Boozer is the best freshman by far in college basketball and maybe the best freshman to ever come through to. Very high praise from Coach K on the field of 68. He was also, again, talking about other things on the field of 68 that I want to get to, including tournament expansion, something that I think is a idiotic idea when it comes to college basketball. I know why they're doing it. It's for the moolah, the money, the green. I get all that. But that doesn't mean that it makes it a smart decision or a right decision. So we'll talk about that and talk about Coach K's commentary on why he thinks that it's a bad idea. We'll also talk some football. Because one thing we kind of glossed over yesterday, we had an awesome conversation with Antoine Staley last night of the New York Daily News. He covers the New York Jets. Very interesting comments about the Jets and their future and options at quarterback, what they're going to do at number 2 in the draft. All really good stuff from Antoine Staley, by the way. If you want to watch that conversation, head over to the YouTube channel, New Generation Media, or check out the podcast channel, New Generation Podcast Network. You can catch that episode with Antoine Staley. He came in about maybe 40 minutes into the episode. Check that out. Really good stuff if you're a big Jets fan or you just want to know about what people with boots on the ground think of what the Jets going to do at number 2 and for the rest of this offseason. But one of the things that we didn't get to because of the Kyler Murray stuff and because of what happened with the Jets and Breece Hall was that the Colts made a decision on Daniel Jones, which was the transition tag. Not franchise tag, but transition tag. And shout out to Connor Orr for Sports Illustrated, because he laid out a pretty good case for why this is a really bad idea. And the more I think about it, the more I also think it's a bad idea. So we'll break down why the Colts might have botched the Daniel Jones negotiation coming into this offseason. So we'll talk about that. Also, some drama happening in the WNBA. Which, to be honest, is kind of not becoming par for the course. But they're in a high-stakes negotiation with the league and the players trying to find some happy medium for a new CBA that is certainly going to balloon salaries to numbers that we have never seen in the WNBA, in part due to the added revenue and attention that has come with Caitlin Clark coming to the league and being the star that she has been so far. So, these negotiations don't seem to be going that great, and it's never a good sign when, at this stage of the game, when we're about a month or so away from the draft happening, 2 months away from regular season games having to happen, and you got the players attacking their own union, which maybe attacking is a strong word, but at the very least voicing concerns about where they stand and how little communication that they are getting when it comes to what's happening with the CBA negotiations with the league. So that's not a good sign. We'll break that down as well. So much to do today. 40 Days, 40 Nights with me, EJ Stewart, streaming live, multiple spots, including live on YouTube, New Generation Media. Shout out to the folks watching me on YouTube. We're also streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart on X. And we are streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ's Way. You'll find me on Instagram. Shout out to Big Friendly. Shout out to Mass1505. Both of them are in the Instagram stream, so appreciate them checking me out this morning. Big Friendly already asked a lot of questions. First of all, he's very excited about his UCLA Bruins. Yeah, they beat Nebraska last night, right? That was a big win. UCLA's been a weird year for UCLA. They were on the bubble, very much on the bubble. Then you had the weird thing where you lose those 2 games in the state of Michigan back to back, and you get absolutely destroyed. And the bigger story than even being destroyed and your season being in the balance was the decision by Mick Cronin to eject one of his players for a foul that was deemed a flagrant, but when you watch it, doesn't look like the most egregious foul. Like, you could argue maybe it should have been a flagrant. I didn't have a problem with the flagrant being given, but Mick Cronin flying off the handle and ejecting his own player, who that game he had a lot of stake. He was a former player at Michigan State. He wanted to, he wanted to walk on at Michigan State, I think, and they wouldn't let him on the team. So he had stake in this game. This was a big game for him, and he embarrasses him by ejecting him. Then he acts like a total putz in the post-game press conference, going after all the reporters, making proclamations about a play that he then the next day said, I didn't actually see because I was too short. Which, I mean, shout out to Mick Cronin again. I've gotten to meet Mick Cronin. He was super nice to us, super nice to our team here at New Generation Media. But, I mean, man, that was a bad week. But credit to the Bruins. I feel like they've bounced back pretty much since that. And I think that's a credit to Mick Cronin, who is definitely one of those, kind of guys where he's never going to coach a bad team. Like, his teams are too well coached, they're too well disciplined. Typically, even they're not a championship contender, they're usually in the mix for the tournament, or he's been a highly successful coach for a large part of his career. So the whole UCLA deal has been funny, but that was a big win last night. They beat Nebraska 72-52. I actually wanted to turn on the game last night, but it was they were already up by halftime. They were up by like 15 points. I'm like, I don't think I need to watch this. I'm gonna go to bed. So shout out to the Bruins. They have played much better. So Big Friendly's very happy about that. Big Friendly also saying it's been an up and down year, but it's about now, which is very true. Listen, at this point in the season, it really doesn't matter as long as you get in the dance. You want to play well because you want to get a good seed and you want to be playing at a high level. But at this point in the season, it doesn't matter what happened with the Michigan game and the Michigan State games, where they got got the doors blown off and the program itself was kind of in shambles. You had Donovan Dent had a game winner a couple nights ago, so they're doing their thing. Again, shout out to UCLA. They won 3 out of 4. They've beaten now 2 top 10 teams in the last 4 games. They lost to Minnesota because UCLA fans, you know the deal. You got to leave the Pacific time zone, and then all hell breaks loose. So somehow you lose on the road to Minnesota, a game that I actually did watch a little bit. They were winning, and I guess they lost that game. I didn't even know. But they won 3 out of 4, so definitely playing much better. They beat their cross-town rivals, and they'll play them again later this week to cap off the season. So shout out to Big Friendly. He's a big UCLA guy. I didn't know if he was an SC or UCLA guy. I know he's a Cali guy. He makes that very well known. But the Bruins did have a big win last night, beating number 9 Nebraska. Probably also middle of the week flying across country probably wasn't a good matchup for them as well. So there's a little bit of college basketball. We'll have more college basketball on this show. Again, if you're watching this, definitely appreciate a couple of things you can do for me. Number one, if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, New Generation Media, that helps us a ton. If you can engage with this video, that also helps us a ton. So if you can like this video, you can comment in the comment section. All those methods of engagement are good engagement for us. So if you can, and it's good engagement for the show, because if you want to get involved in the show, like Big Friend's been involved in the show, he's already asking questions, and then we'll get some of these questions he's asking. That's a way to engage the show and be a part of this show, is to get in the comment section and ask me anything really. You want to ask me what I'm talking about? We can talk about that. You want to ask me what I'm talking about, from yesterday, or you want to just say, hey, I have a random question, EJ, answer this. I can't guarantee I'll answer it, but sometimes I do. And people who have watched the show enough know I've answered some very random and out of nowhere questions. But that's how we roll here on 40 Days and 40 Nights. If you can engage, we greatly appreciate that. And again, if you can't watch this show in its entirety, which is totally understandable, there is another method to watch this. Number one, of course, it lives on YouTube after the show's over, so you can watch it at any point on YouTube. But if you're on the go, whether you're working out, whether you're driving, whether you're on the train, whether you're on the bus, whatever the case may be, you can catch all these episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights on our podcast channel, New Generation Podcast Network. You can get that wherever you get your podcast. Just search New Generation Podcast Network. All right, so let's get to what's going on in LA. So the Lakers have been in a little bit of what I think is fair to say, kind of a rough patch of their season. I think they righted their ship with a couple of wins here, but they had lost 3 in a row. They were not playing great basketball. and tensions seemed to be very high during their Saturday game against the Golden State Warriors. And at one point in time, there was an exchange between JJ Redick and Luka Doncic that didn't look all that friendly. Luka goes to the bench, JJ goes over, says something to him. It seems like he's definitely, it doesn't seem like he's encouraging. He could be, I don't know, but it definitely seems like he's getting after his ass, being like, you didn't get back on defense, or you're complaining too much, or whatever the things you were complaining about with Luka Doncic. And Luka stands up and is like, what, bro? What did you just tell me, basically? And then shout out to Jared Vanderbilt, who everyone on the internet has said, this guy was the real MVP. Because him standing up on the bench and like pretending that he's clapping for his teammates or clapping for whatever was happening on the court so that maybe you couldn't see like Luka Doncic about to crash out, or Luka Doncic couldn't actually like make his way towards JJ Redick to see if he was gonna maybe make this altercation worse than it was what it already was, which it wasn't too bad. But Luka seemed to be willing to escalate the altercation because he didn't like what JJ was being said. Jared Vanderbilt, who's sitting on the bench next to Luka Doncic, hearing everything, knowing what's happening, as JJ walks away and Luka gets up ready to walk by him, he just stands up and goes, hey, good job, good pass, baby, let's go Lakers, here we go, baby. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's that good Lakers basketball right there. I mean, absolute masterclass of how to be a good role bench player, how to be a vibes guy. Never thought of Jared Vanderbilt as a vibes guy. I think of him as a defensive guy. I think of him as a good athlete, not a great shooter, but a good player. I always thought Vanderbilt was a little underrated, but didn't know he was now I know he's a maybe generational vibes guy, because he maybe saved the Lakers from a even bigger headline. It's already a headline that we're talking about it here on the show, but it could have been a bigger headline had he not stepped up and got in between JJ and Luka Doncic in the smoothest way possible. So there's been a lot of commentary about this, and I will first want to play you, because you're going to hear from JJ Redick, but I first want to actually play you the report from David McMenamin before we even heard from JJ Redick. So this was David McMenamin, who was on NBA Today. Based on his reporting, league sources, Lakers sources feel like this is much to do about nothing.
A league source said when he saw the video, LA is different. The smallest thing becomes the biggest thing. A source close to Luka told me that him and JJ have a strong, close relationship that dates back nearly a decade, and they're both fiercely competitive, and they push one another. A team source said, find me a star in the NBA that isn't frustrated amidst a 3-game losing streak. And so it's much ado about nothing, but hey, we know the internet likes to have their fun. In this case, if you have been around an NBA basketball team full of people who live for competition, sometimes it gets a little messy when they're trying to go towards a common goal.
So all respect to David McMenamin, this is the line you usually hear from NBA reporters and NBA beat writers. They will always tell you that these things are much ado about nothing, and these things happen all the time. You just don't see them, and these things blow over and they move forward. And I'm not saying that isn't the case, but I think with these two gentlemen particularly, considering the fact that I think David McMenamin is right that these guys have had a long relationship. They were teammates, so they know each other. And Luka has been, I can't believe this is a statement that even gets put out, talking about NBA basketball and NBA head coaches. But Luka has been a guest, maybe even a frequent guest on JJ Redick's podcast in the past. So, and a lot of, I think, the appeal of JJ Redick being the head coach when they traded for Luka Doncic was that there was a relationship, and he has spoken so glowingly about what Luka Doncic does well on the basketball floor. So I don't even deny that this relationship is bad or on some terrible, careening, driveway off the highway, right? Or, that's not what I'm saying here. But I do feel like these two personalities, I don't know if this is for the long haul. In fact, I really don't think it's going to be for the long haul, because there are a couple of things at play. You have JJ Redick, who is a hothead. He's a hothead, and it actually is funny. Like, it's funny to hear players talk about coaches after they've been done playing with them. Darren Williams had a very good interview. Shout out to Darren Williams. We forget how good he was because it ended badly in Brooklyn, and a lot of people like to dance on Brooklyn's grave. I'm one of them, to be clear. And also, I think, like, anytime you're dealing with somebody who I think, being in shape was a big issue. Sometimes we joke about his weight and stuff. He was him. When he was playing on the Utah Jazz in his prime, people will say, oh, you guys saying that he was good as Chris Paul. Y'all were lying. Okay. Okay, sure. You clearly weren't there to talk about how nice Darren Williams was. Darren Williams was him. He started getting injured, wasn't in the best shape, and then his career didn't go the way Chris Paul's went. But there was a time where they were absolutely equals. And he mentioned how, like, he was talking about all the coaches he played for. And he said, I was, when I was playing in New Jersey / Brooklyn, like, AJ Johnson was the coach, and then he got fired, and PJ Carlesimo was the interim coach. And he was like, I gotta be honest, PJ Carlesimo, he was an asshole. But, like, that was his thing. Like, his shtick was that he was an asshole. And, like, I got it because I kind of understood, he's very sarcastic, he's kind of a jerk. But he does know basketball, but he's just not going to be a nice guy. He's not a nice guy about it. He said some guys can play under that, some guys can't. He said Brook Lopez was a guy who could not play under PJ Carlesimo. And you guys, I think, know Brook Lopez. He's kind of a gentle giant. He seems like a very nice, his brother is kind of a wild card. But Brook seems like just a very nice, respectable Stanford man. Like he was at Stanford for 1 year, but he that's kind of always been his disposition. So I can imagine like someone like Brook, who is such a gentle giant, playing for PJ Carlesimo, who, in Darren Williams' words, is an asshole. And if you don't agree with Darren Williams, ask Latrell Sprewell, who lost the entire season trying to choke his ass out. So I think it's fair to say the jury's been out on what PJ Carlesimo is as a head coach. By the way, shout out to PJ. He was part of the NBA on NBC throwback broadcast. He was doing the halftime pregame with Hannah Storm and Isaiah Thomas, which is super cool. I might have some comments on that in a second, but shout out to PJ Carlesimo because of that. And he does a great job doing radio. He does stuff with Westwood. He's everywhere, but he's the man. Very good color analyst during NBA games and college games. I get the impression JJ Redick is just kind of a cantankerous guy, is my point. Like, I think that's going to be how he coaches. And number one, I don't know if that is going to be beneficial just in the NBA. I think you could be that way in college. Like, Mick Cronin's kind of like that. Mick Cronin's a cantankerous kind of guy. He's a guy that gets after people. He gets after his team. That's just how he is. And when you're dealing with college kids, even college kids making money, I think you can still, because of the power coaches have and the power that they wield, you can still rule with an iron fist. It's a lot harder in the NBA. And I think it's certainly a lot harder when you're trying to do that kind of thing with Luka Doncic, who I think is also kind of a hothead and also willing to go after guys and not back down. He's not going to let his coaches talk to him crazy. And I think, I don't know what kind of coach Luka needs, because Luka certainly, I think, has had a lot of hand-holding for a lot of his career when it came to being in the right conditioning, being in the right shape. That has led to problems come playoff time. We've seen that a bunch throughout his career. That is obvious. But I don't know if this is the personality for him. Like, I don't know if, like, the guy who's just going to constantly ride him, just constantly be on his ass, just constantly say the kind of out of left field, out of pocket thing. Because JJ, I think when he gets, competitive and he gets a certain way, I don't think he has a filter. I don't think he has a let me take a step back and namaste and relax before I say whatever comes out of in my head. I think he just thinks what he feels. So whether it's ripping his team in the media, ripping his team on the sidelines, and he's not the only, again, I don't want to make it clear, he's not the only one that does this. There are coaches that rip players, there are coaches that rip guys in the sidelines. I've seen Steve Kerr break freaking, play boards, play sheets. Like, I mean, we've seen coaches get after it, even in the NBA. But JJ seems particularly miserable all the time, and he doesn't seem to bring that joy, I think, to the team. And if I was someone just looking from the outside, and he'll tell me, kiss my ass. That's exactly what he'll tell me. But if someone looking from the outside, I would suggest to him, you gotta lighten up a little bit, man. Like, your team is losing. They were in a losing streak. Luka isn't doing something right. I don't see him bring much levity to the Lakers. It feels like anytime that there's, and I guess to David Benjamin's point, anything that happens in LA gets blown up, and he's right. That's certainly true. But it just feels like anytime I hear anything about JJ Redick as a coach, either it's because they're winning and they're doing it, and he's doing a good job. Because I think X and O's wise, he has shown that he knows what he's doing. But when it comes to anything else with how he talks about the team, how he embraces his players, I don't see any of that. I don't see I'm going to put my arm around your shoulder and show you, hey, young fella, you're doing a good job, and we're going to work through this together. He doesn't seem to have that. He is a maniacal competitor, and it's why he was able to stick in the NBA for the 16, 17 years that he did. It was why he was able to be a guy at Duke who was a McDonald's All-American despite being 6'4", without really much of a handle, and why he was able to turn himself into one of the greatest shooters of all time. Those are all reasons why he got to where he got to, but that doesn't mean that disposition is how you need to be 100% of the time as a head coach. Do you need some of that? Absolutely. To be that way all the time, or to be that your front-facing personality, I don't think it's a good thing. I really don't. And I think for him, I wonder if just like, again, because I think there is talent there in terms of his coaching talent. I think there is talent there. I feel like he's going to get out of. He's not going to get out of his own way with some of these incidents where he wants to talk crazy to a reporter, talk crazy about one of his team, his guys on his team, or talk crazy to Luka Doncic in the middle of a game. They did win that game, so maybe it was what Luka Doncic needed to hear at that time. But Luka is not the guy I think that's going to respond well to that. And the other thing about Luka Doncic, I don't want to shoot him just entire barrel hill and say this is all his fault, because he is insufferable to watch sometimes. There's no question about that. I saw someone else put that in the chat. John Lee said Luka whining last night at the free throw line. Dude is becoming insufferable. Yeah, I mean he the complaining and stuff. It doesn't bother. There are things that happen on the NBA court and on the basketball court that bother other people that don't bother me. Like a player complaining all the time, unless my team is playing against them, I really don't care. If I'm just watching the game, I'm just taking these guys as they are, and it is what it is. But I know that his complaining, it turns a lot of people off. And I also think that like him complaining while also like not playing defense or not getting back or not doing the things that are necessary to win certainly don't comport a winning attitude or a winning mantra for the Lakers moving forward. Luka strikes me as a guy that is going to need his Draymond Green to Steph Curry. Like, Steph is a very good leader. In fact, a lot of people say he's one of the best leaders in the NBA, maybe in sports. And they're different personalities, Steph and Luka. But Steph is just not. I mean, look at him. If he gets in your face, act like he wants to fight you, you probably laugh. Like he just doesn't. He just looks like a very baby. He's been a babyface assassin for most of his career. He looks a little older now. He's starting to look his age a little bit, but he just doesn't look like the kind of guy that's really gonna get after you in the way Chris Paul or Isaiah Thomas or other point guards have, where it didn't matter how small they were, you were actually, well, Isaiah Thomas especially, you were actually afraid. Chris Paul, I don't know if people were actually afraid. I think people kind of looked at him kind of like you're just annoying. But that kind of that snarl that comes with that kind of leadership, that's not what you're ever gonna see from Chris Paul. And we should be Stephen Curry. That's never you're gonna see that from him. And the Warriors, they didn't need Draymond's other nonsense. But I think the getting after people, getting in people's faces, that kind of leadership, they did need somebody to do that. And Draymond has been able to be that guy for the Warriors. Now, he comes with a lot of other baggage. But that part of it does make him very valuable to the team. Because where Steph, he's not going to come in yelling, screaming, acting crazy. Where he can't do that as a leader, Draymond can. And Draymond is legitimately scary because he can lose his mind and be out of control at any moment. With the Dallas Mavericks when Dirk Nowitzki was there, a big thing also was Dirk Nowitzki, again, similar, great leader, works hard, hardest working guy on the team, not the most vocal guy or not the guy that necessarily is going to get after people and things like that. They were going to need somebody else to do that in order to kind of keep the locker room in check. And Jason Terry building into that role and then bringing in Tyson Chandler for that role. So that's two guys. They were able to be those kind of like big voices when the team needed them, where someone like Dirk Nowitzki, that's not his MO. He's a great leader, but just in a different way. I actually don't know if Luka Doncic is even a great leader. I have no idea. I've seen nothing to suggest that he's good. I don't think I've seen enough to say that he's bad. He just might not be a leader. That's just maybe a reality. He may just be a great player, and sometimes you can be a great player and not be a leader. There's that adage like, do you need your best player to be your team leader? And I don't think you necessarily do. I think you can make the case that for the Dallas Cowboys, Michael Irvin was their leader, but was he the best player? I think you probably say Emmitt Smith was the best player, and Michael was 2 or 3. He was right up there. He was really good, but he may not be the best player, right? There's examples where, again, you could argue, like, was Dirk Nowitzki the leader of the team? He is a leader because of all the other stuff he does, and he's the face of the franchise, but you could argue Jason Terry was the leader of those Dallas Maverick teams that went to the finals and won an NBA championship. Same thing with the Warriors. Steph Curry is a leader on the Warriors. Is he the leader? You make the case that Draymond might be the leader of the team. I think Luka Doncic is eventually going to probably need someone like that. Because I think, number one, the coach is only going to be able to tell him so much when it comes to trying to say, hey, cut this crap out. You got to get back on defense. You got to play defense. Stop whining or stop being in your own zone like he gets sometimes. And maybe you can't, and the reality is Luka's personality means you probably can't do it the way JJ Redick did it on Saturday. So you need a coach who can find the right messaging, but you're also going to need someone in the locker room who can be an equal, who can talk to him and say, hey, man, we need you to play better defense. Or, hey, like, okay, the rest of I'm giving you calls. You cannot make this the biggest storyline of this game when we're trying to play a basketball game. You have to get back on defense. You have to be engaged. Engaging with the refs in this way is just not helping the team, and it's just. I also think, to me, I always thought that it sucks the life out of an NBA team too, or a basketball team. I think when you have a coach or you have a player that is so involved with fighting with the refs for such a long, extended period of time, players aren't stupid. Like, they see what's happening, and I think that it actually is it drains the energy of teams. I think it sucks the life out of them. So Luka doing that, forget about it being just insufferable. I actually think it hurts the Lakers, because I think when you see your star, maybe he's not your leader, maybe LeBron James is, but when you see your best player, your superstar, basically brought to his knees in terms of how frustrated he is by officiating, it doesn't instill much confidence in your team. It doesn't instill much confidence that you're going to be able to work through this, because your star player is not engaged with the game, he's engaged with the refs. I get a big thing for the Lakers, as we know that they're coming up with this 2.0 version, because this is not going to be the team that Luka's going to be playing with moving forward. There's essentially one guy. He's essentially the only guy. I think Jared Vanderbilt actually is the other guy that has a player option. Everyone else on this team is not under contract 2 years from now. So next year, they'll have most of these same guys, with the exception of LeBron James and a couple others, under contract. And then everyone else is off the books. So the Lakers are fully planning to come into 2020, that would be the 2027, 2028 season. They're fully expecting to come in with an entirely different roster. When they pick these guys to put around Luka Doncic, they need to find themselves a Draymond Green, a Jason Terry, one of those kind of guys, a Michael Irvin. One of these guys where we say, okay, Luka, he's a special talent. No denying that. Special talent. And a talent that can absolutely win you a championship. But in order for us to play championship basketball, we need championship habits, and we need a championship locker room. He's not going to be the person, I think, to lead that. I just don't think that that's in his DNA. I think you're going to have to find somebody else to be that. I have no idea if Nikola Jokic is that. That is kind of like the open secret that's out there in the NBA circles, that Jokic will be a free agent after next season, and if he doesn't sign an extension, the Lakers have another cap room. It would make sense for them to be one of the teams that definitely will be in play for Nikola Jokic. I just think that I don't know if he's the right guy. Talent, I would still do it. The talent is immense, but they need to find that other guy, because Luka has not once shown me that he's a leader. He's shown me a bunch of other different things. Never once showed me that he could be a leader of a locker room and of a team. And some of these antics I think we're seeing from him is indicative of that. Big Friendly in the chat. JJ the plumber trying to tell an artist how to paint. The reality is we can't even pull that with JJ Redick because most NBA coaches couldn't play. Let's be real. JJ Redick's actually probably one of the better players who are coaching in the NBA today, if you really think about it. Like, Mike Brown didn't play in the NBA, as far as I know. Mitch Johnson didn't, as far as I know, I don't think played in the NBA. If he did, it was over a cup of coffee. Mark Day, these guys aren't these guys aren't NBA players. So it's a funny line, JJ the plumber trying to tell an artist how to paint. Particularly since we know JJ wanted to bring up the plumbers and firemen when talking about Bob Cousy, which has become infamous. But no, I mean, again, I don't know if his playing has anything to do with that, but I do think that there is a reality that this might not be the best personality fit for Luka. If it's not the best personality fit for Luka, then it ain't a good personality fit for the Lakers, and he will be gone once they come to that fruition and come to that conclusion, which I think they will at some point. I really do. What else we got in the chat here? Mentioned Luka's whining. We got some other questions I may get to a little bit later. Here we go. I think in all sports, for every team needs that one enforcer, that everybody knows what time it is when he's on the field, court, or ice. Yeah, I totally agree. I think most of the championship teams have had that guy. Again, the Warriors had Draymond Green. The Bulls had Dennis Rodman. Sometimes that enforcer leader could be your star. Like Shaq was that guy. He was the leader and also the enforcer and best player. Like you can have that guy. Luka's gonna need that guy. He's not the guy. Sometimes the star can do both roles. I think in your best case scenarios, if the star can be both of those things, that's important. That's not going to be the case with this team. You could argue with the Celtics, the championship they won a couple years ago, Jrue Holiday was the leader. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are leaders, and Jaylen Brown's the guy that definitely likes to hear the sound of his own voice. So I'm sure he's talking a lot. But I think the leader of the team, you could argue, was Jrue Holiday. Again, it doesn't mean that your best player has to be the number one leader, but you're going to need somebody to have that role. I haven't seen a lot from Luka to suggest that he's fit for that. That's just kind of how I see it. It's 40 days, 40 nights with your boy EJ Stewart here, streaming live on YouTube, live on X, live on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Make sure you follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. And make sure you follow me on Instagram, @EJ. Coach K is saying a lot. We had Coach K commentary yesterday from the Field of 68. Shout out to Jeff Goodman, the Field of 68. Love that we have a platform dedicated to college basketball and college basketball only, and they do phenomenal work, so big shout-outs to them. And they had Coach K this week for an interview, and one of the first big things that came out of it was his high praise for Cam Boozer, where he said that the Duke freshman was arguably the best Duke freshman to ever come out of Durham, and that he is by far the best freshman in college basketball today. The by far aspect of it, I don't know. But I think you could make a case that he is the best, even though he's not the most talented. I think Peterson and I think Dybantsa are more talented. But the best in terms of who consistently impacts winning, who consistently makes winning plays, I think that Cam Boozer certainly is that guy, in my opinion. I think if you're talking about March Madness and what's going to happen moving forward, you're going to be looking for teams that some of them will have freshman-led teams. And if you know anything about March Madness, those are the teams you kind of want to run away from. One-and-done freshmen don't particularly do well in this tournament. There are only a few exceptions. He feels like the kind of exception. So while I don't know if he's the best freshman by far, I think he is the best freshman playing college basketball right now. And I don't think he's the best Duke freshman. I think that's Zion Williamson, at minimum Zion Williamson. There may be other guys you can make a case for. He certainly has put his name up there with the season Duke has had, especially in what is a really tough college basketball season. This has been a gauntlet season. Now, Duke has played in the ACC, but there's a lot of talent. So for him to play the way he has and be right up there for potential National Player of the Year shows you the kind of season Cam Boozer had. Coach K on the money on that. He also spoke about kind of the state of college basketball. One of the big conversations happening is this possibility that the tournament could expand beyond the 68 teams that are currently there. Coach K was also asked about this when talking to the field of 68 guys, and he made it clear that that would be a mistake.
There are less teams capable right now than ever before, and there are many have-nots, and it's not their fault. And I don't think you mess with something that is gold, it's gold.
I mean, I agree. The fact that this is even being in consideration, it just speaks to how much like money is the root of all evil and how it just sucks. Because I could argue we've done greatest sports innovations on the Maggie and Perloff show. We did it at least twice. We're trying to find great debate ideas, I think. And we've done a bunch of different things. I forgot what I used to always pick. Because I think both times I picked the same thing. But you could also argue that the greatest sports innovation was expanding the NCAA tournament field from, I think it was 16 before, like 16 to 64. That was, I mean, you want to talk about just now catching lightning in a bottle and turning, the Final Four always was a big deal. The tournament always was a big deal, even back in the 70s and 60s. But you want to talk about supercharging this thing and turning it into the money-making machine that it became. That expansion of bringing in all those mid-majors and making this tournament much bigger, one of the smartest things that's ever happened in the history of American sports. Easy top 5. And if you're talking about money, it's definitely up there. Maybe number 1 in terms of where the money was before and where the money is now because of that expansion. They expanded to 68, about 15 years ago or so. And a lot of people didn't love that, but it was not this crazy expansion. It only added a first 4 game that I don't think most people really love, but it's fine. It's fine enough. It's a little appetizing before you get the whole shebang on that Thursday afternoon, the first Thursday afternoon and third week of March, where we all get excited and we fill out our brackets and we're getting ready to watch them implode in about an hour or 2 hours. So sometimes, if you're lucky enough, maybe you get through one afternoon of basketball, your bracket is safe, but by the end of the day, your bracket is probably totally destroyed. That's how the tournament goes, right? We are in a great spot where college basketball is when it comes to the tournament. The fact that we keep having these conversations, having to talk about the possibility that tournament expansion is something that is a real thing that they're considering, it just sucks, and it doesn't seem to be something that would make much sense from a actual basketball standpoint. You want to talk about, because of NIL and revenue sharing, now the money that these suits who don't do jack crap are making. Our pocket's a little light, or the school administrators' money's a little light, and we got to find a way to ensure that more teams can get these bags. So let's expand the tournament field. Let's bring it to 72. Let's bring it to 76. I think 76 right now is a number that's being talked about the most when it comes to big expansion. This big thumbs down, man. Huge thumbs down. Coach K said if they want to get this thing right in terms of fixing college basketball, they don't need to worry about expanding the NCAA tournament field. What they need to do is get a full leadership team in charge of dealing with all the other issues involving NIL, transfer portal, and all that chaos.
The thing you should mess with is getting a leadership group and having them study and see what happens with that group. It's not just one person, but actually they should run it like the NBA and have a staff and all that thing and run it like a business. But I wouldn't mess with gold right now, and the NCAA tournament is certainly that.
And again, you're probably asking, why would they even consider messing with gold? Because I think everybody agrees, this is awesome. The NCAA tournament has if you did an approval rating of, if you do politicians, you're going to see a lot of ugly numbers. But if you did just an approval rating of things that happen in America, the NCAA tournament might be one of the few things that has a 100% approval rating. It would have a higher approval rating than dogs and cats, because some people don't like dogs, some people don't like cats. It'd have a better approval rating than hot dogs, because some people are vegans. Find me a person that has a beef with how the NCAA tournament is run. I don't think you could find anybody. So you ask again, why are we doing this? Well, it's just like what we're dealing with the college football playoff. Is you have these high major programs that are now having to take money out of their own pockets through the revenue stream and through whatever backhanded, and what previously was backhanded boosters, but now it's NIL. So everybody's pockets are a little bit lighter. They're saying, wait a minute, like now I'm spending money above board and maybe more money than I used to because there's a true open market, and we might not make the tournament. I spent $5 million on this roster and we got nothing to show for it because we were the 69th out of the 70th team, or because Miami of Ohio was undefeated, so therefore we couldn't find a way to get in that large bid this year if they end up losing in their conference tournament. We can't have that. Me losing money? What? No. What can we do to make sure that we make up this money? What's the way we ensure that we get the return on this investment? Guarantee that I can actually get into this NCAA tournament so I can get this bread. So these teams and these programs are looking at this saying, yeah, let's expand this thing to 72 or 76, add 8 more teams, and then you'll have your Bruce Pearls of the world do what they always do, and then sit around on a table, in a round table on TNT or CBS or whatever the channel is, and talk about how, yeah, man, the 15 and 14 Auburn Tigers, they deserve to get into the NCAA tournament as the 76th team. We're gonna have a fight about, DePaul versus Georgetown for the last spot of the NCAA tournament, as if those teams matter. When those teams do not matter, they don't. And I think the worse you make the bubble, the more the bubble becomes like whatever. And we've already had a problem with college basketball in terms of it feeling, for some people, like a March sport only. Because of so many, the years, the decades now, this is not a news issue, the decades now of players that are leaving college basketball very early after 1 or 2 years, star players. And because of now the transfer portal, where there isn't a loyalty to a player in a team like there used to be back in the day, the storylines of following guys through a whole season for some fans just isn't all that fruitful until March Madness. Because at the end of the day, you will always care about March Madness. You always care about how your team finishes. So that has made this whole shebang a little different in terms of how a lot of people approach March Madness and a lot of people approach college basketball, where they're just trying to, like Perloff said on the show a couple of days ago, they're just cramming as much information as possible to be able to talk about March Madness in the next few weeks, because we know this is going to take over our lives in a couple of weeks. Sad I'm not doing 40 days and 40 nights during March Madness. You know how awesome that would be? That kind of would be impossible. What? Yeah, it kind of would be impossible because there would be games on while I'm live, and that'd be kind of weird. Morning would be possible, but not the other shows. But like a lot of this has become the regular season already being watered down, and that has nothing to do with expansion. It's just like the nature of college basketball. People being like, "Am I really in the continent?" And don't even talk about conference realignment as well. There was a time where it didn't matter if it was January, June, December. Syracuse and UConn were revving up for a big Monday showdown. You were seated, because it wasn't about what's going to happen in the tournament. There was pride on the line. This was a real rivalry. Duke, North Carolina, lacing them up. Obviously, they're still in the conference, so we can still have those games. But it's still a big deal. Conference realignment has also screwed a lot of this stuff up, where now we're having teams that were longtime rivals, and we don't get these games consistently anymore. So, and those teams aren't in the same conferences, so we don't have the kind of record watching or the newspaper watching, where you want to pull up the newspaper and see, hey, like UConn win last night, St. John's is trying to catch them in the Big East standings, right? Luckily, UConn's back in the Big East, but for a long time they weren't, right? It's a lot of those aspects have really, in some ways, really damaged the college basketball regular season. You want to damage it more? Put in 8 more teams in the tournament. Now, who cares about a game between Arkansas and Alabama, the game they had a couple weeks ago that I talked about on the show? That was an absolute classic. Probably the best game of the college basketball season this year. Double overtime. Darius Acuff going insane. LeBaron Philon also having a huge night. Arkansas playing with 8 scholarship guys. Awesome story and awesome stuff. How much did it really matter other than the fact that I love basketball and therefore I talked about it and we love sports? And if you're gambling, it's always going to matter if you got money on the line in the game. Besides that, though, what difference else does it make? You go, okay, well, listen, the seeding's important and all that stuff, and that's true. But if there's another 8 teams being added, potentially, and that's what we're talking. We've seen models for adding 92 teams, for adding 84 teams. There are models that have added even more teams than just the 76 we're talking about right now. Those games feel even less important. It's like, all right, like maybe you want to evaluate a guy for an NBA draft, sure, but otherwise, what difference does it make who wins this game? We're going to fight between who's a 5 and a 6 seed in a 90-team tournament? Who cares? What difference does it make? Doesn't make any difference at all. So that part of it sucks, man. And Coach K is 100% right. It does not help college basketball at all to consider bringing in more teams for the NCAA tournament. And when they tell you, well, we don't have enough money, they're lying to you. They are lying to you. College sports, particularly because of the money that's generated with college football, prints money. Never let them tell you that they're out of money. They're not. They're not out of money. The reality is, the world that they used to live in, where there were guys getting paid under the table for sure, but so many guys were not getting paid at all, or were getting paid very sparingly, or paid a one sum and then that was it, right? Like, are all under the table. Those guys not living these lavish lives of being multi-millionaires, living in mansions, kicking their feet up for doing absolutely nothing. I always talk about what I love about my time working on Maggie and Perloff. It's so much I learned from Maggie and Perloff, and so much I've just like thoughts that I never really considered, and they have brought to my attention on many different things. And I always knew like college administrators were scammers, but like the way my friend Pearl talks about how like these might be the biggest scammers in all of sports. The college administrator, the bowl game commissioner, which I know HBO Real Sports did a phenomenal job. Like that is the best job in America, which is why they're trying to. You want to know why they're trying to hold on to this bowl system? We keep saying, hey, maybe the bowl system is just outdated. Like no one else seems to really care about it. The players don't seem to care about it. Even the coaches don't seem to care about it as much anymore. In fact, they want to hide from the bowl system because they don't want to show off their good players on their bench who maybe then go to the transfer portal. Why are we still doing this? Well, there is somebody who puts that bowl together in quotation marks. That's probably making $5 million and has all these, cush amenities for doing this basically no-show job. And there are a lot, again, of college administrators who don't do much or aren't asked to do much, who make a lot of money simply because of the money generated from athletics. And because those people are getting a little more uncomfortable because they're like, whoa, I'm not going to be able to buy that Ferrari in the offseason because we didn't make the tournament. Wait a minute. I can't get the deluxe pool that I was going to put in my backyard because we missed the NCAA tournament and I paid how much money for this roster? No. You can't have that happen. I got to have the Ferrari. Got to have the deluxe pool. Got to build the deck outside my 100-acre ranch, 100-acre mansion. Gotta have that. The kids are here's a little $500,000 here, $700,000 there to play. Even though you guys are the ones that are generating all the revenue, no one gives a damn about literally any college administrator, not one. But they're feeling it. Those athletic departments are feeling it. Those administrators are feeling it. Those boosters are feeling it. And they want to have more assurance that they will get the money on the back end of being a part of March Madness and the revenue that is generated with that. Because now they have to share it. So how do you ensure everybody's ensures that revenue? Add more teams. And it doesn't mean we're not going to be adding more Austin Peay's. We're not going to be adding more Howards. We're not going to be adding more, Murray States. Those are not the schools that are going to be added. We're going to be adding the Auburns. We're going to be adding the DePauls. We're going to be adding the Minnesotas. Like those, and like as if we give a damn about seeing any of those programs. None of us do. Unless you, and Auburn I know was in the Final Four last year. They just had a bad year. I keep picking on them because of Bruce Pearl and his ridiculous comments about how an undefeated team shouldn't make the tournament, which is insane. But like, we don't give a damn about Minnesota basketball. We don't give a damn about DePaul basketball. We don't care. Not when it comes to the NCAA tournament. If you're a team in the Big Ten or you have a rivalry with them, okay, sure, we care about them. But do we need to ensure that if they don't put together a 25, 26 win season, that they need to get into the tournament at 16-17 or some 500 record? Like, no, we don't care. We don't care about them. They don't make this tournament great. Kind of like we talked about with Bruce Pearl. The thing that makes this tournament great are the stars that emerge, the Cinderella stories, and then the spectacle of the Final Four. That's it. Not adding more teams, not more average power conference teams. We don't need those teams. Seems pretty simple to me. But when money is at the source of everything, that's how things get distorted. And that's how this is getting distorted. That's exactly why. We talked about star freshmen. This was pretty interesting from AJ Dybantsa, star freshman for BYU, who was speaking to Desert News. He did a sit down with them, and they were asking him a bunch of different things. But one of the questions they did ask was they were wondering what his future held when it came to whether or not he would possibly be the number one pick in the draft. Was that something that he actually wants? Is that something that he is striving for? What I found interesting was he said, "Not so fast, my friend. Who said I'm going to the NBA?"
Do you care about going number one? Do you want to go number one?
Yeah.
Do you think you will?
Well, I might not leave.
What do you mean?
Like, I might not leave college.
Why not?
No, I just got to return to the season.
So you haven't made up your mind that you're going to go into the draft?
Nah, cause my mom wants me to graduate.
Really?
Yeah, so I might not leave. But I might leave. I don't know, you know, the fans might get into my head, talk about, you know, 1 more year, maybe 3 more years. I don't know. But like, I'm gonna have to talk to my mom. So
your mom wants you to stay and get your degree.
She wants me to get my degree.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget how young these guys are. They are so talented and gifted. They're so physically gifted that sometimes, like, just because we're seeing them on a basketball court, AJ Dybantsa, if you're watching him, he's 6'9", he's about 220, 230, solid base already. When he gets to the league and he starts putting on real NBA muscle, when he gets older, when he becomes an actual grown man, I think he's going to be a scary force. I really do. But you hear that comment, he's like, yeah, I might not go to the NBA. Why? I got to talk to my mom. You're like, talk to your mom. But he's 18 years old. He actually does have to talk to his mom. Like, that is a reality for him and his household. But I found it, first of all, just like a fun sound to hear AJ Dybantsa putting on, like, I can go to the NBA only if my mommy says I can go. But I was 18 years old. If I was in that position, I damn sure would have had to make sure my mom signed off for the fact that I was going to the NBA. And he says that his mom really wants him to get his degree, which is why he may stay at BYU. He said it may be for 1 more year. He said it may be for 3 more years. Who knows, right? But he said, I also could leave. That also is a possibility. Which I think is the much more likely scenario. But why I wanted to talk about this is I think there is 0% chance that AJ Dybantsa is leaving. Staying at BYU. 0%. There is no shot AJ Dybantsa is not going to end up playing in the NBA next year. But there is questions about whether or not we will see one of these star athletes on the college level, whether it be a college football player who's in their 3rd year, who becomes draft eligible for the NFL, or an NBA prospect who is a one and done, or maybe even not a one and done, he could be just any year, who is draft eligible, who decides that because the money I get in NIL is so massive, I will stay and play college basketball again because I really love it at Duke or at BYU or at Arizona or at Gonzaga or wherever the school may be. And there's been some prevailing thought, Pearl's been one of them for sure, that said that this is going to happen at some point. You could argue maybe it kind of happened with Arch Manning. It's kind of hard to say or tell what the deal was. It seems more like they didn't think he was ready for the NFL, which I would agree with. But Arch Manning maybe is an example of somebody where in a different timeline where you're not quote unquote getting paid, that maybe he would have left because the money would have been guaranteed, in the next level, whereas he doesn't have guaranteed money, quote unquote. I pause for emphasis there. that money is not guaranteed in the college level. There's no money coming to him. I, for one, think there's zero chance that AJ's going to leave, and there's zero chance that he should consider, zero chance that he's going to stay, and there's zero chance he should consider staying. And I think all athletes who are in college, if you're in a position to be like AJ Dybantsa or like Caitlin Clark was a couple years ago, or any of those other athletes, it is always the right move to go to the pros. Easy, simple, not even a conversation. You always go to the pros, regardless of whether you think that you're making enough money in NIL to say, listen, I'm making enough money in NIL. I really like it here in my school. Maybe my mom wants to get me to get my degree, so I can maybe get my degree. I'll let the NBA or NFL wait, and I'll stay here. And I'm not playing for free. It's not like if I don't get hurt, all of a sudden I'm not compensated. Like, I'm getting compensated to some degree. I like it here. Let me stay. No, that's nonsense. The difference between an NBA guarantee contract or an NFL guarantee contract and whatever deal you sign as an NIL player, which is we now know, a year-to-year deal. Even the 2-year deals we now know are year-to-year deals because of what happened with Dybantsa. And whatever insurance policy you may pull out that may be able to recoup some of the money that you could lose due to a devastating injury, but not all of it. It's silly to even consider not going to the pros when you're a guy like Dybantsa who could be a number 1 or number 2 pick. There's no advantage of playing more college basketball. There's none. You've already shown that you're a superstar player, that you're a top prospect. The number 1 pick thing is interesting because it certainly is going to be up for grabs of whether or not he's the number 1 pick in the draft. Is there a case to be made that if being the number 1 pick is that important to him, if he stays, he guarantees he's the number 1 pick? Because he would be the number 1 pick next year. Next year's draft is not nearly as strong as this year's draft, which is why so many teams are going all in the NBA on the tank this year and actually planning to be good next year. Like the Jazz, who are tanking this year, are planning to be good next year after trading for Jaren Jackson. The Wizards, who are tanking this year in order to keep their pick and avoid it going to the New York Knicks, are planning to be good next year with Trae Young back in the lineup. He makes his debut later this week, and Anthony Davis. Because they realize next year's draft, it doesn't really behoove them to be in the lottery because they're not sure there are a lot of lottery-worthy guys in next year's draft. So that could be a wrinkle in this where AJ could really badly want to be number 1 and say, well, if I stay a year, make a ton of money at BYU, and then I guarantee myself the number 1 pick, I'll do that. But you're stopping. What the problem with anybody that's considering this is, again, you don't have the guaranteed money coming to you for the years and years and years beyond just your rookie year in the NBA. Whereas in college, you're guaranteed for that 1 year you're playing in college. And you got to hope that nothing happens to you that actually jeopardizes whatever NBA money you had already in your pocket had you left. Number 2, in all sports, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, the WNBA, what is the number 1 thing and number 1 deciding factor in whether or not you are financially stable and you are financially all good for the rest of your life? Can you get to a second contract? That is the end-all, be-all. That will determine what your financial state. I mean, I guess to make stupid investments, you could certainly blow that money. But if you want to know the difference between the guys that have played in the NBA or NFL, what the financial situation was for the guys that made it to their second contract and the guys that didn't make it to their second contract. You'll essentially see the guys that make it to the second deal, those are the guys that have now the, generational wealth. A one-time, if you're AJ Dybantsa, even if you're still the number 1 pick, a one-time $40 million contract, which I think is around the money you make as a number 1 pick in the draft. It's about a 4-year deal. I think it's around $10 to $15 million, maybe more. Maybe it's like 60 at this point. I always forget the rookie salaries at this point. But let's say somewhere between $40 and $60 million. It's a lot of money. It's money that you can retire with. It's certainly money that, in theory, you could end with in terms of like you're good for your life and you're good with your family. But it's not guaranteed. Not at all in terms of that being a situation where you're going to be set for life and the value in terms of the wealth that you've now assumed, because there's so much cost that comes with being an NBA player, being a professional athlete, that $40 million or $50 million, you're talking about taxes, split that in half of that's gone. Now you got to pay for trainers, now you got to pay for your crib, now you got to pay for all this other stuff. Maybe that's $10 million now off, gone, just like that. And now all of a sudden what looked like $50, $60 million looks more like $10 million, which is a lot different than you get into your second contract because you're a star and you then signing a $250 million contract. That's different. You got to knock off half of that. You got to knock off another 20 or so just for living expenses. You're still left with $100 million. So I feel like I'm doing Steiner math. I wish I had the Scott Steiner. I think I do have a Scott Steiner sound. I'll see if I can find it. But like that's the reality. If you're AJ Dybantsa or you're any one of these athletes, every year you stay in college basketball or college football, you are slowing the clock to you getting to your second contract, which is where the real money comes in. You could live a lavish life. You could be a star. You could be a pro. You could be a millionaire. You will enjoy all the things of being a pro athlete, playing on just your first contract as a first round pick in the NBA. But it's not going to be the generational wealth where you feel like I can retire my mom, I can retire my dad, my kids' college is going to be paid for the rest of their lives. My grandkids' college is paid for the rest of that kind of money. If that's what is maybe it's not the goal, but it's something you should just consider for your personal life, your personal well-being. Those are the things that you need to do to get to your second contract. So I don't know if AJ Dybantsa is serious about this. Like, if you watch the video, he's definitely kind of smiling and winking. Not winking, but he's kind of smiling, so maybe it's a smile and wink a little bit about whether or not he actually will really stay. I think the mom stuff is real. I'm sure his mom really does want him to get his degree. But, I mean, I would tell Mama Dybantsa the same thing. Mama Dybantsa, the generational wealth that your son has in front of him begins the moment he starts that first year of his NBA career and gets the clock moving on if he can get to that second contract. Him playing another year of college basketball, he's going to make a lot of money. Maybe it's $2 million. Maybe it's $4 million. Hell, I don't know. Maybe he sets a record. Maybe he makes $10 million in college basketball. I don't know. At BYU, they seem to got a lot of bread over there. But it's not the sustainable generational wealth that is coming to him if he gets to his second contract. You want to make sure you get to that as early as possible. That's and as long as you're ready. I'm not saying enter the NBA when you're not ready just to get to a second contract, because you might not be good enough to get to a second contract. That's the difference. There's some guys who say, I'm just going to enter the draft because I don't know if I'm ready, but I just want to see if I can get this money real quick. It's like, all right, but you need a lot of development. Maybe you're a first round pick, but if you're a later first round pick, it's going to be a lot more challenging for you to make your way through the NBA, and you're trying to earn that second deal. I hope you get it, but like it's a tall order. Maybe you should stay in college and develop a little bit more. That's not AJ Dybantsa. AJ Dybantsa is going to go to a team, and he's going to be considered their franchise player day one. Day one, he's going to go to an NBA team, and you're like, all right, the franchise is his. He's the guy. We're building around him. That's the kind of talent he is. So he's going to have all the opportunities to get to that big, lucrative second deal. Hell, we've seen guys like Zion Williamson have injuries, weight issues, women issues, all different kind of issues, and even he still got to his second contract. Why would you want to get to have any of those things potentially be concerns in the college level? Because we don't know what may trip up AJ Dybantsa in the second year at BYU. No. This is something no college athlete who has the possibility of being a number one pick or a number two pick or anything like that, they should never consider this. In college football, same thing. Arch Manning, I think he made the right decision because his family's rich, or his family's wealthy. His family, you don't want to talk about guys that got the second and third contracts. His uncles did pretty well for themselves, I think, right? His grandpa did really well for himself. I think even his dad didn't play in football because he got a neck injury, but I think he did something else financial. So the money is fine. But that's, a kind of a different case. And he needed to develop. he needs to develop to ensure that he can get to the second contract and not be a bust. It's not AJ Dybantsa. Not even close. So, I don't know. To me, it's simple math. How do I get to my second contract as fast as possible? Leaving college early? Okay, Dybantsa, you should leave college early. That's simple. Simple math.
You got a 33 and a third chance of winning.
I had to get that Steiner in there. So I know I have a Scott Steiner in there. I'm glad I did. It's 40 days, 40 nights. Your boy EJ Stewart. Got a question in the chat. Big Friendly's asked this a couple of times. I promised I was going to get to it. I know you asked me a couple of times, but I'll get to it here. So, what are your thoughts on Cliff Kingsbury joining the Rams staff? I mean, I thought Cliff Kingsbury should have been the coordinator for a lot of different people, to be honest. I think he would have made a lot of sense in New York, potentially as an offensive coordinator or a head coach. I think he would have made a lot of sense in theory with the Jets. The Jets didn't want him. I thought he would have made a lot of sense in LA, though. I think that the Chargers landed on someone really good with Mike McDaniel. I know Sean McVay said that he called it, and well, now he's joining. He said it was an intriguing idea, an intriguing thing when it came to putting Kingsbury on the staff. It's a good move. I mean, I think with Kingsbury, with him joining the staff, I don't look at it as he is going to be the play caller. Like, he's not going to come in and it's going to be the Cliff Kingsbury show. He's going to be running the offense. Like, this is Sean McVay's offense. This is going to be about Cliff Kingsbury hanging around Sean McVay for a year to put a little more shine on the head coaching resume for when Cliff Kingsbury goes for more jobs next year. Because for whatever reason, he was not as hot a name as I thought he would be. I thought he did a really good job with the Commanders in his first year. The second year, injuries happened, and there seemed to be some kind of friction with the head coach. I kind of think the head coach got a little insecure and a little jealous because the Commanders were a kind of terrible defensive team in both years Dan Quinn was there. And offensively, the first year, they were excellent. So I think he got a little insecure and fired a guy who probably didn't deserve to be fired just because he realized people looking at him. And he's like, well, I don't want them to fire me and just feel like they have a replacement right here in-house that they can go to and feel comfortable with. So Cliff, for whatever reason, wasn't the belle of the ball that I think some people expected. So I think for him, he goes with Shanahan. He helps McVay. He goes with McVay. He helps McVay out for a year. I totally expect that he'll pick his brain. He'll help the offense. But this is going to be McVay's show. This is going to be about what Cliff Kingsbury can learn from the Rams. This is going to be about what he can learn from Sean McVay. He got the Arizona job because they were looking for a Sean McVay type, even though he had nothing to do with Sean McVay. He has no connection to Sean McVay. He runs a different offense. He runs an air raid spread offense from the Mike Leach tree in college football. McVay famously is a Shanahan acolyte of the West Coast offense, which is a branch off of the tree of Bill Walsh. That's where all this comes from. He's a Mike Holmgren guy. Like, this is a situation where there's no connection. But I think that Cliff can certainly help. Cliff's a smart offensive coach. I'm sure he'll have great ideas. I think bringing some of that air raid principles to the Rams' passing offense can't hurt because they have explosive weapons all over the field and a quarterback who I think is the best quarterback in the NFL. Big Friendly admits it. I kept saying over and over again that Matthew Stafford is by far the best quarterback in the NFL, so you would have loved that. So Cliff can help, and he will help. But I think this is almost like an internship for him. I'll be honest. I think this is like a come around, do some work, help me design plays, help me do all that stuff. But like, this is for you to learn and grow. And you hang out with me for a year. Then you go to NFL teams. They call me and say, hey, what do you think of Cliff Kingsbury? You can say, Cliff Kingsbury is awesome. Cliff will be hired as a head coach next year because of this. I guarantee you. Because he's someone that, why would he go to a place where he can't call plays? Like, he's a play caller. He's been a play caller his entire career. Why would he go somewhere and not call plays, or at least have someone who's going to be a strong voice in the offensive play calling. I don't see McVay giving that up. So I think with Cliff, he's a good person to have just on your staff. He's a talented guy. I think this is more of this helps him more than it helps the Rams. Big Friendly seems to disagree. He said, not at all. I think he's going to help with designing a whole new offense and a lot new exciting offensive plays. I mean, they're not going to say, hey, go push some pencils. I'm not saying that. I think if you work with Sean McVay, you're going to be put to work. He seems to be the kind of guy that is trying to make sure everybody in the organization is engaged with something that is geared towards helping them win. That seems to be just the kind of person he is. So I'm not saying that Cliff's going to come in there and he's going to be a pencil pusher. Do I think he's going to be calling plays? No. Do I think that he will have like a huge say in the play calling? No. I think he will have a huge play in coaching the team week to week. I think he'll have a huge case in scouting. I think he'll have a huge case in he'll probably bring in some wrinkles to the offense for sure, and some plays for sure, and some thought processes for sure. This is a dangerous combination to put Cliff Kingsbury in those air raid principles with someone as highly successful as an offensive coach as Sean McVay. So it's a good thing for the Rams. I think McVay thinks it's not a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I'm saying, do I think it's more for Cliff or more for the Rams? I'm telling you, I think it's more for Cliff. I really do. The Rams don't need Cliff Kingsbury. Their offense was fine. They performed well against. Think about how they played against the Seahawks. That Seahawks defense that completely zipped up the Patriots and the 49ers. And think about the success that the Rams had against them twice when they played against them. Both in Seattle. Up against them big in the regular season before they blew the lead in the second half, and the hijinks happened with that bizarre two-point conversion that ironically may have decided the season, if you think about it, because now you're talking about who had home field advantage. You had to play that final game in Seattle. If that game goes differently and the Rams win and they have number one seed, maybe we're talking about a whole different kind of offseason, a whole different outlook for the Rams. But think about how that ended, and think about how they played, and think about how those other teams looked against that Seahawks defense. I don't know if the Rams offense has this other gear they can get to. They're already awesome. They're already arguably the best offense in the NFL. Could you be better? In theory, yes. Nobody is perfect. But it's to me, if you're saying where the value is for this, I think 1 year tango that's going to happen, the value is to Cliff. There's value for the Rams, but it's not as much for Cliff Kingsbury. This Cliff Kingsbury will be a head coach. Mark it down, day 38 of 48 40 nights, March 4th. He will be a head coach next year. Guaranteed. Because these NFL owners and these NFL general managers, if you've sniffed Sean McVay's jockstrap, if he wears one on the sidelines, you have an opportunity to be a head coach in the NBA, in the NFL. They just love the McVay Shanahan tree, and they think all those guys are where it's at. Just where it is right now. And Cliff is not part of that tree, but he got hired by the Cardinals because he was a young offensive coach who reminded them of Sean McVay. I'm like, he's nothing like Sean McVay in terms of how they run offensive football. But okay, sure. And a lot of people were upset, and it sparked a lot of conversations. We talk about the lack of diversity in the NFL, and it became what's really going on here. This guy is not anything related to Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, because he gives you Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan vibes. He's getting hired for a head coaching job. What does that mean? So that's how I see it. Shout out to you, Big Friendly. Big Friendly adding one more comment. Most definitely, it's more for Cliff. It's just like his offensive mind with Matthew Stafford and that often offense. Yeah, I mean, again, he's gonna help. I just think your offense is great. I don't think that there's now we're gonna be a super offense. I think your offense is awesome. I expect Matthew Stafford to come in, have another phenomenal season. I know that McVay said there was a fluffy thing going for Friday. So sorry if you saw me on camera try to catch a thing. It was like a little feather flying in front of my face. But no, I know Sean McVay said that he feels very good about where things are progressing on a Matthew Stafford deal. It's kind of insane that we're going to be doing this. It feels like every year with Matthew Stafford, where he's going to play football, but he's going to be holding over the head of I played better than I did last year, which means you got to give me more money. And give me more money now. And because the deals that he's signing are so short, they have no choice but to rip them up and give him more money. So that's what's going to happen again this upcoming season. But it seems like things are going well with that. Rams' issues are defensively. Who are they as a defensive team? Chris Shula did not get hired as an NFL head coach. He was a guy that was talked about in very high praise as a guy that was up next potentially to be an NFL head coach. I watched the Rams defense that looked pretty bad for most of those playoffs. They were bad against a Panther team. They were bad. They were against the Bears. They kept them out of the end zone, which was good. But then they really almost gave it up at the end. And the Seahawks had their way with them offensively. Had their way. They ran all over them in the first drive. Sam Darnold got into a rhythm late in the first half, and that rhythm stayed for the rest of the game. For a defense that has this awesome pass rush, it feels like their secondary still is not up to snuff. They've been relying on a lot of kind of lower draft pick kind of guys. It feels like the chickens came home to roost for the Rams in the playoffs when it came to they need to get some real corners and real safeties in there. I love my guy Cam Kitchens. He's a Miami Hurricane, so I always got love for him. But there's things that they got to figure out with the defense. That's what I think is more of the issue with the LA Rams. I want to talk quickly about what's going on with the Colts. So they used the transition tag on quarterback Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had a great year playing for the Indianapolis Colts. He unfortunately tore his Achilles right as the season was starting to gear up and they were starting to play some of these good teams. They had an 8-2 start last year. He tears his Achilles, he's out for the season, and that was essentially curtains for the Colts. I don't know if they won a game after that. If they did, then maybe they won one. But they had to bring in Phillip Rivers to try to save the season. That didn't go very well. So this was a really rough go for the Colts down the stretch. But they were impressed enough with Daniel Jones that they want him to remain the starting quarterback. But when it came to coming to a deal with him, as he came up on a free agency, this was the best they could do at this point, was a transition tag. It's not a tag that's used quite often, but basically it is a lesser version of the franchise tag, meaning this is the money that he will play on if he plays this year, which he's going to play. He's not going to sit out. But if another team comes and wants to offer Daniel Jones a long-term contract, he can agree to terms with another team, and then the Colts will have the opportunity to match whatever offer comes their way. Now, unlike restricted free agency or the non-exclusive franchise tag, where that's more money that's offered, where I think the non-exclusive probably would have gave him 42 million or whatever. If you gave him the franchise tag and you gave him a non-exclusive tag, you would get compensation if you decide to not match a long-term offer from another team. Like we talked with Lamar Jackson when he got the tag. It was a non-exclusive tag where it was if somebody decided to sign Lamar Jackson to a huge deal, and if the Ravens decided not to accept it and let him walk, they would have got 2 first-round picks from that team. It essentially kind of becomes like a trade. That's not the case with the transition tag. So it's a little bit of fire where if they have misread the market and Daniel Jones actually has a $45 million offer for multiple years sitting around somewhere that we don't know, some desperate team decides, you know what, like our quarterback situation is so bad, we need to figure out if we can make a move here. And they decide, let's take the Daniel Jones, give him $200 million, let's move forward with this. If that's the case, this would be a complete, miscalculation from the Colts, and they could be in a lot of trouble because now they have to decide whether or not they want to sign Daniel Jones long term coming off a torn Achilles. So there's some concerns about whether that could happen. And this is a free agent market and a QB market that is going to be a little volatile. There are a lot of teams that need QBs. Jets, Colts, Dolphins, maybe Steelers, probably Vikings. A ton of teams. Somebody may take what they saw from Jones and say, you know what, I'll bite the bullet and give him $45 million over 3 years and see what the Colts do. And if the Colts, if you're not willing to do that, we don't know what their plans are because all we got was this tag. Then that could be trouble because if they face a deal with Jones from somebody else that they don't like, what is their backup plan? They are still a win now team. They have Jonathan Taylor in the prime of his career. They have Michael Pittman in the prime of his career. I'll get to Alec Pierce in a second. They have a strong offensive line. They have a defense that seems to be coming around and is pretty good. They're a win-now team. What do you do if Daniel Jones leaves? Anthony Richardson wants to be traded, and you said he can go find another team, and I don't think he's the answer anyway. What is plan B if Daniel Jones is gone? I don't know if there is one. Conor Orr wrote a lot about this in his article. Shout out to him from Sports Illustrated. I think he makes a good point in that sense. The other aspect about this too that I think is important to follow is with where the Colts are in terms of their salary, not figuring out the Daniel Jones situation off rip, I think is going to be a problem. Because I mentioned Alec Pierce is going to be a free agent. He's arguably the best wide receiver on the market. He's going to get paid this offseason. No question about that. He's one of the best deep threats in the NFL. He's a little injury prone, but when it comes to the deep ball, there are very few receivers who are as prolific in terms of yards per catch as Alec Pierce. The Colts right now are $4 million over the cap. They currently, obviously that's with the transition tag. There are teams I'm looking at like the Raiders, like the Titans, like the Chargers, like the Jets, maybe not the Commanders, like the Steelers, who have at least $40 million in cap space. Jets have 74, Chargers have 84, Titans have 93. There are teams that have a ton of money in cap space. And you right now, because you have not figured out the Daniel Jones situation, you still now are $4 million over the cap. Because if you sign Daniel Jones to a long-term deal, you can finagle the numbers to where the money that right now is just a $36 million cap hit, that money could be off the books as a bonus or as something. Maybe he makes $1 million in salary, but makes $40 million or whatever in bonus. Like, there's ways to finagle NFL money that I don't like. I think it's stupid. I think it's silly. I think they need to adjust that, in my opinion. But whatever, no one seems to care except me. But you can adjust the contract so that it's not so much money up front in salary number. Now it gets moved around, like that money doesn't go away, but it's not in the first year. You can say, okay, we're gonna give you this huge signing bonus, and that's where most of your money's coming from. It's gonna be just a lump sum we give you right at the signing. You only make $1 million in salary, but who cares? We're giving you $100 million up front. Like, you can do that. That's allowed in the NFL, which would allow the Colts cap space to then sign Alec Pierce back, who I think they need to bring back. Now, because you did this with Daniel Jones in the transition tag, where that is a $36 million cap hit. That is money that's there. There is no finagling that. It's guaranteed. It's on your cap. Where do you get the money for Alec Pierce? Are you willing to just let him walk? I don't think that's that smart. I think that you need to bring him back. I think that he's a vital piece for them. And then again, I go back to, okay, if you're willing to let Alec Pierce walk, what is plan B? I don't know. Is plan B an NFL draft pick? Newsflash, they don't have their first round pick. They made the trade with the New York Jets where they gave up 2 first round picks for Sauce Gardner. So if you're looking to see where the Colts maybe say, well, maybe we could draft one of these top receivers in the draft. Maybe we could say, you know what, we'll go get a Mekhi Lemon, or we'll go get a Boston, or we'll get one of these guys. Where are you getting those guys? Jordan Tyson. You're not getting them in the first round. They don't have a pick in the first round. So now you're saying, well, now we got to wait till the second round, or you're going to trade more assets in order to get into the first round to get a top receiver? I don't know. This seems very shaky team management for me if I'm a Colts fan. I think it probably would have made much more sense to say, let's just come up to an agreement with Daniel Jones. We think he's our guy. Why are we playing games with this? Let's just pay him. Let's hope that he comes back from the Achilles. The reality is he's probably going to need 2 years to come off the Achilles. That's the reality. Is we've seen it now over and over again with athletes. The first year on the Achilles, after the Achilles tear, you're not really 100%. Second year, you're much better. We saw Kevin Durant just not play that first year. He came back the second year, and he looked like the old Kevin Durant. It looked like nothing happened to him. So Aaron Rodgers tried to play in that first year on the torn Achilles. Did not go very well. He did not look good at all. This year with the Steelers, he looked much better, even for a guy as old as he is. That's what doctors will tell you. That's what our good friend Dr. Rock Positano will tell you, who's a renowned foot doctor, that with the Achilles injury, it just takes you 2 years if you're a professional athlete to really feel right again on your Achilles. So even, let's say Daniel Jones plays on this transition tag for a year. I don't know if you're getting the same production from Daniel Jones that he had this previous season next year. He still may be gimpy. He still may not be the same. What are you going to learn from him in 1 year? I don't think he might not prove to you that he's your franchise quarterback. So you're going to potentially lose Alec Pierce and screw up your cap situation because you don't know on Daniel Jones. You don't want to make a decision on him. He plays coming off of a torn Achilles, and he doesn't look that great. And what, you let him walk after that? What gets accomplished there? Nothing. Nothing gets accomplished there. I'm all about bold action. I don't know if I'm gonna get into the story, but I've told the story before. But like, I had a college age crush who I was talking to, and I was like, she did not realize I was talking about her. She didn't realize I was talking about her. But I was like, what do I do to like stand out? What do I do to like, impress someone that I'm really interested in? And she's like, you just gotta be bold. Just make bold action. That's what women want to see. They want to see you be bold. That didn't end well. But we're fine and we're friends. But like, it didn't end well in terms of romantically. But I'm that way when I think about how NBA and NFL teams run their team. Be bold, man. This is not bold. $36 million transition tag that locks up your cap space, that doesn't make a decision on Daniel Jones, and potentially allows you to lose your star wide receiver. That's not bold action. That's the half measure crap that I hate. I hate when teams do half measures because I don't think you actually get anywhere. Go in one way or the other. Say, you know what, Daniel Jones, you had a great year. Thank you for your services, but you know what? We're not 100% sure on you because you tore your Achilles. You've had a whole bunch of other issues. You've had a torn ACL. You've had neck surgery. You've had back issues. Like, this guy is a walking injury. So it is totally understandable for someone to say, you know what? He was great. They had really bad luck with him having a torn Achilles. Maybe the Colts shouldn't bet on Daniel Jones being their guy moving forward, despite how well he played in those first 10 games or so. That's a fair thing and understandable thing. I think all people say, yeah, I get it. It's a risky thing, but it's understandable given his injury history and who he is as a football player. Or you say, you know what? He got hurt, but damn it, we got the best medical staff. We know modern medical science. We know guys can come back and still have good careers after Achilles injuries. We're going to sign him long term, lock him up. He's our guy, and we're going to make sure we get him right. Maybe the first year is slow, but we're committed that Daniel Jones will be our guy, and we think that he's the guy that can get us right. And because we did this and we gave him some huge signing bonus, look, now we're able to sign Alec Pierce because now our cap space is freed up. That's bold. That is okay. That's a direction. That's something I can actually see. Okay, there's a plan here in place that whether it'll work or not, we'll see. But at least I know what you're telling me. This tells me nothing. Again, it seems like borderline malpractice that you may lose your star receiver because you transition tagged Daniel Jones because you just couldn't decide whether or not you wanted him to be your quarterback or not. You wanted another let's see year, and the let's see year is going to be casted with doubt because he's coming off a torn Achilles. I don't know if this is the real Daniel Jones next year. It may be how he is for the rest of his career. He may just be too banged up. So you may make a right assessment if he doesn't play well and say, you know what, we only had him on 1 year transition tag. We're going to move on. That's fine. But again, you could also make that determination now. Or he could play poorly next year, you move on, and then on another team, second year off the Achilles, maybe he looks like Sam Darnold did with the Seahawks. Like, that's a reality too. These are the stupid games and super prizes that are available to you by doing this. I did not... Shout out to Conor Orr for Sports Illustrated. I'm glad I read his article and kind of got to learn more about the transition tag and then me doing my own work and kind of seeing what the Colts are in their cap situation. I'm like, what are they doing? This should not have been in any situation the plan here. He either had to be a free agent and say, we don't walk, we're going to draft a quarterback and we'll figure something else, or just sign him. I cannot imagine Dan Jones is asking for $50 million a year or something crazy. I don't know. I could be being silly. Maybe I'm being, and if that's the case, then Daniel Jones, shame on you. Because you have a good situation there. They believed in you when no one else did. I know you want to get paid, but you're screwing your team over because they may lose their star receiver because you're being too greedy. If that's the case, shame on him. But I don't think that's the case. He's probably asking for the deal he signed with the Giants a couple years ago. The 2 years, $40 million a year, guaranteed. And that's something they should give him. Just give it to him. What are we doing? What are we doing, Indianapolis Colts? Last thing before we get out of here. This has been a fun one. Again, 40 Days, 40 Nights, it's your boy EJ Stewart, streaming live, multiple spots. Instagram, Action EJ, X EJ_Stewart, and on YouTube, New Generation Media. If you're watching, be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, New Generation Media. And if you're listening to the podcast, podcasts can be found wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. All you got to do is search New Generation Podcast Network. Just search New Generation Podcast Network and New Generation Podcast Network. And you can find not just all of these episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights, but all the other episodes that encompass New Generation Media and New Generation Podcast Network. So you want to get episodes of Hero Talk, want to get episodes of Sports Talk, want to get episodes of the Imperial Broadcast, our Star Wars podcast. You want to get episodes of All Script, our wrestling podcast with my friend Lucas Goldman. All those things are wherever you get your podcasts. Just search New Generation Podcast Network. Last thing, man. It's not a good sign with where things are at with the WNBA. WNBA has seen, I think, obviously real growth, and I think there's real hope that the WNBA is going to be in a position to really pay their players money that they haven't seen for its entire existence, money that is well earned because of the hard work that they've put together and the stars that have entered this league that have really made the league a very entertaining product. Caitlin Clark, an absolute mega star when it comes to sports. Some would argue maybe the most famous basketball player, men or women. Angel Reese, Cameron Brink. Those are just the second-year players that have made an impact in terms of just their brands and their the pull that they have. Of course, rookie Paige Beckers, and of course the women that are currently playing in the NBA and the stars that they are. Asia Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, so many of the absolute stars. Nafisa Collier. The game is as good as it's ever been. The talent is as good as it's ever been. Some of the off-the-court drama, and I don't mean like the nonsense culture war drama that comes. I mean like the actual trash talk and the beefs between teams and players. That stuff also hasn't been better. It's been a great product. And that's why the WNBA was able to sign a massive TV deal that brings in all this new TV revenue that they have never seen on these levels. And more money's coming to the league. And now the WNBA players, rightfully so, are now saying with a new CBA here, it's time to pay up. It's time to put together a league and a infrastructure that allows the women to fully commit to the WNBA and not have to potentially play in other leagues in Europe. And we saw the terrible situation that happened with Brittany Griner, where she was in a Russian prison for what they said was a weed pen. But it's Russia, who I don't even know if what they're saying is real or what comes out of there is real. And you know, the stories of women playing in China and all different kind of places. They essentially have to have two jobs. Like, you can't live off of the WNBA salary for most of the players that play in the WNBA. And that puts them at a health risk. They don't have real off seasons. This is a golden opportunity, and they're taking it. But now there's becoming some concerns that we're getting closer to the season. There's no deal in place. Proposals are going back and forth, but they don't seem very serious in terms of either side really considering them. And when you get to this stage of the negotiations of a CBA, two things could be happening. Neither one is great, but one is really, really bad. And that one being the fact that we may not see WNBA basketball for a while. So yesterday, Kelsey, Plum, and Breanna Stewart, they are both vice presidents of the Players Union. They sent a letter that was obtained by ESPN, a 3-page letter, to Executive Director Terry Jackson, where they expressed, quote, concerns about how the PA is handling the current negotiations, and talked about including the lack of adequate player involvement in the process. Again, this was a private communication that was obtained by ESPN. I don't know why this was obtained by ESPN or who gave it to ESPN. The fact that ESPN has it could be a bad thing. I'm going to say could. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, because maybe like Breanna Stewart and Kelsey Plum trying to ring the alarm, and they're like, I gave you this private thing, but also it's public, and now people know that we're concerned about this. If it's from the PA side and they're leaking this and possibly trying to pit players against each other and pit Plum and Stewart against the people that are actually negotiating these deals, then that is not a good sign. But it got obtained by ESPN. Again, Plum is the first vice president of the union. Stewart is a vice president. they requested, quote, a change dynamic between our PA administrators and the players, and said, we do not feel like we have an adequate seat at the table in these negotiations. These negotiations have been happening since last year. It is March 4th. The season is supposed to start in a couple of months. There's a draft that's supposed to happen in April. The WNBA players don't have a seat at the table when it comes to negotiations with the CBA. What the hell has been going on? What the hell has been happening this whole time? That is bad news. That is terrible. That feels like we're nowhere close to any kind of agreement being held if you're in a situation where they don't have a seat at the table. Again, this was a letter that was obtained by ESPN. The union declined to comment on the letter. Jackson shared the letter with the committee earlier Tuesday because there was a Tuesday call that was held to address the issues raised by Stewart and Plum, as well as the results of a survey sent in recent days polling players and their thoughts towards the league's CBA proposal. And I don't think I have it anymore because I think I deleted it. But I think you'll remember that there was sound that I played a couple weeks ago from Sophie Cunningham, who's a little bit of a lightning rod in herself because she kind of goes to the beat of her own drum compared to the other WNBA players. And she made some comments that I thought, once I heard them in context, I understood. But I thought maybe she should have been a little careful with her words. She said that we look like the laughingstock of sports. And when you talk about the WNBA, it's a culturally charged topic, and there are a lot of bad actors who use the WNBA as a way to push culture wars that are detrimental to the WNBA, using language like we're a laughingstock that can be, and in Sophie Cunningham, I don't think she's asked to be a cultural warrior or someone to be championed by a certain side or anything, but that has certainly happened. I think that it was probably not the best choice of words. But then when I heard her point, which I want to get to, is now I think what I really fully understand what she was saying, and I think she was right, which is this idea that like this kind of stuff is kind of like ridiculous. Like, it's March 4th and the players don't have a seat at the table. And I'm not just talking about the players, I'm talking about the vice president and the first vice president are the ones being like, we don't know what's going on with these negotiations. We feel like we're on the outside looking in with what's happening. That is not good. That does speak to the fact that maybe that this is not going the way it's supposed to. And one of the things Sophie said was she felt like there were people, like everyone's trying to like basically kind of go into business for themselves and like be a leader. Like I think one of her biggest criticisms was like, it just feels like everyone's trying to like get their stuff in, as we say in wrestling. Or again, put themselves over, as we say in wrestling. When we're not really trying to work towards the betterment of all of the women and the entire league. It's this person saying, I want to have the loudest voice, or this person saying, I want to have the loudest voice, or I want to push this, or I want to push that. And the focus is not there to where it needs to be. That was her criticism. And she said it not just on the PA side, she also said it from the WNBA side too, that the WNBA is the same way, where it feels like there are people over there who want to go into business for themselves and not for the league. This feels like that. Like this picture that's being painted kind of matches what Sophie Cunningham was talking about. Because, and I'm going to be clear, I'm not accusing Plum or Stewart for going to business for themselves, because I don't know what's happening. But the fact that Stewart and Plum, two highly, very well-known star players in the WNBA, who are vice presidents, are putting their names to this and essentially saying we're boxed out. That means they're being boxed out by somebody who doesn't want their voices or the players' voices being heard, or they're being boxed out, and this is not my accusation, but they're being boxed out because they're making their voices felt and maybe they're not helping the negotiations in any way. Either way, that's a bad thing. Either way, that doesn't work well for the WNBA or doesn't feel like you're in a good spot for this deal to eventually come to fruition. I'm not casting any aspersions on anybody, on them. I don't know what the story is. I just know the story being this, in terms of a public-facing front, is bad regardless. It doesn't matter whether it's they are being shut out and they shouldn't be, and therefore now this is happening, or they're being shut out because their voices and some of the player voices have been too destructive to negotiations, and therefore they've had to kind of put them aside just to get progress on this deal. You're going to need everybody all on the same page, all pulling the same way in order for this thing to come through. This is a highly contested negotiation. This negotiation and the Major League Baseball negotiation are two of the biggest labor fights I think we've had in pro sports since the NFL's stoppage that they had, where they didn't miss any games, but they, had, all that long stretch where it was unclear. We went into, it was like June, I think, when they finally signed an agreement. And, the famous story of Robert Kraft, whose wife was, on her deathbed, and he was, while caring for his wife during that time, trying to get forth a deal with the players, and he's been said to be instrumental in that. He gets a lot of praise for that. It's why he almost made it to the Hall of Fame as a finalist this past year, along with him being, of course, the owner during the Patriots dynasty. But this is bad. I don't think this is a good situation at all, because again, I think it speaks to what I thought I heard from Sophie Cunningham, which was people are kind of going into business for themselves. We don't have real clear leadership. There's too much secrecy. These are things that were said already. These are things that were already said. Now it's being said to the head of the union in a way that is now being publicized on ESPN.com for everyone to read and see. And WNBA is just rubbing their hands together, like Birdman meme. Oh, we got them. Because I saw someone saying on social media, and this is real. When you're the ownership side of this, what you hope that you have is you're able to pit the unions against each other and potentially whisper in the ear of some weak-knee players as we get closer and closer to potentially no basketball being played, who cannot afford to not have WNBA money coming their way, that maybe some of these louder voices of Breanna, Stewart, or Kelsey, Plum, who are not players who need to play overseas, who are not people that are starving for money. That's not the case with those. They're not making the money they're worth still, but they can play in WNBA and not have to do anything else. They're fine. Seen the off-court money they make from the actual salaries they make, it's not a ton, but it's definitely enough to be an WNBA star. They're probably fine. But they're one of 12 WNBA players. 15 is not like it's a ton. They're a rare breed. So that is where the WNBA is probably we got them where we want them. Now this is going to be real gut check time for the union, because they're fighting amongst themselves. They're not even fighting with us anymore. But if that's where they're at, and the fight is happening, and this is a fight that's nowhere close to being done, it seems like, between union members, then WNBA basketball, man, I don't know when you're seeing these women play this year. And that sucks. I got back into the WNBA watching it semi-regularly during the bubble. There was not much going on, and the world was shut down. So I was like, you know what? I grew up a New York Liberty fan. Why not? They just drafted Sabrina Ionescu. I was like, why not get into WNBA basketball? Why don't I watch? I love basketball. And the games have gotten much better, apparently, so let me watch. Of course, Sabrina basically tore up her ankle in the second game. so it was a long, long year watching the Liberty struggle for another long season. But I enjoyed watching these girls hoop. They are awesome athletes, and I've remained a fan ever since. They, of course, won a championship at Liberty, not this past season, but the season prior. And now, with everything happening over the course of the summer, NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball dog days, NFL OTA stuff. By that time, the off season's kind of over, but OTAs, training camp, mini camp, those kind of things. WNBA was a nice thing to just have in the lexicon, and for it to be a real entertainment product that you could really sit there and enjoy some awesome basketball. If we don't have that this upcoming year, it's going to be a blow to the league. I wonder, it's just a real conversation, just like how important is playing a WNBA season this year compared to ensuring that they get the generational money that is essentially owed to them. What's the balance with that? Do you lose all of the momentum you had by not playing or missing a ton of games this year? But then you get your money, so maybe it doesn't matter. But is that money permanent then? If you really do damage to the league by not playing, is it worth signing a lesser deal in order that you do play and you will have some kind of raise so you could stand on something? It's a very complicated issue, but Kelsey, Plum, and Breanna Stewart having their emails leaked or letters leaked, whether they did it or the WNBA PA did it, not a good sign for anybody who wants to see WNBA basketball this year. That's where we're going to leave it today, man. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out 40 Days and 40 Nights. Bob Custer joined the chat a little bit late today. It's all good. He is in support of Cliff Kingsbury as a decent coordinator. Thank you, Bob, for not putting a third K there. I feel like a slip of the keyboard. That could have been really concerning there. That's Cliff Kingsbury he is talking about. Shout out to Bob, who's been a great member of the chat. Bob Custer in Nevada. Also, he's happy to see Big Friendly in the chat. Yeah, Big Friendly's back. And Big Friendly's name has been mentioned so many times, whether it's been people in the chat, whether it's been me. People asking me, where's Big Friendly that this is happening? I'm like, I don't know. Or don't you guys have a network? You guys don't send the Raven to each other? I don't know how the people in the chat work, how the Wheels and Coffee Drinkers communicate. I would have hoped that you would have been following me and following, the show, because the show counts. I've retweeted 40 Days and 40 Nights a couple of times. You would have seen that I was doing this. So people have been looking for Big Friendly. There's been a bunch of other, Pine Needle, who I think has showed up a couple of times. There's been a couple, of the Wheels and Coffee Drinkers that we've been expecting to see. So, yeah, no, we're excited to have Big Friendly here, even just for the last week. He agrees with Big Friendly about Cliff Kingsbury making an impact on the Rams. He said Sean McVay hired Cliff Kingsbury. He has to be a solid coach. Sean doesn't seem to get it wrong in terms of guys that he hires and their ability to have success with the Rams. Now, outside the building is another story because Raheem Morris, what was the guy? Brandon Staley, Again, I think those are two defensive guys, to be clear. But I think what they did was I think the NFL looked at those two guys and saw the Rams defense and said, do we really need to get Chris Shula a job right now? I'm not 100% sure we need to do that. Maybe we'll hold off before we give Chris Shula a job. Let's see if he can actually fix their defense before we just hand him another NFL team. So defense, we don't see. But offensively, yeah, most of his coaches go on, they do great things. That is for sure. This has been a lot of fun, man. Big Friendly. After the show ended, I was heartbroken, devastated, and depressed. I had to go under a rock for a while. Oh man, that actually makes me sad. I'm not joking there. Yeah, I mean it was been tough for all of us. It's been tough for people who've done the show. It's been really awesome to see, not just me, but the people all over Infinity find their niches and do their own things as they get ready for their next big steps. But yeah, no question, the show was a special show, and I have so much gratitude to the Wheels and Coffee Drinkers who supported our show, who supported me since the show began and welcomed me with open arms and supported the show in its entirety. Supported Maggie, Pearl, Manny, Bogish. Got love for all you guys. So yeah, it was heartbreaking for everybody. But again, I keep saying they said something will home. I know it's a little late. I know it's March now. I understand that. But just to say, like, it's not like this thing is over or dead or there's no plans potentially for Maggie and Perloff to do something. When they're ready to announce something, that will happen. And I can tell you that there's something that is in the talks, in the works. Some things take time, and that's a reality. But some new iteration of whatever Maggie and Perloff do is in the works, and we all just have to be a little more patient in terms of waiting to see when that happens, man. John Lean saying, luckily we had EJ start this awesome show, and Yelps started his backup as well. Thank you, man. Thank you, John Lean, for saying that you think this show is awesome. This is a tough pull. I've never done a solo show in this concept for any extended amount of time. Of course, I filled in on Maggie and Perloff hosting, whether it's been co-hosting or hosting by myself. On WFAN, I've only done solo shows, right? Yeah, I did 1 hour with Keith McPherson once, but that was it, and that was kind of by accident. But otherwise, I've only those I've never said, let me do a concept and idea for a EJ hosted show by myself for even a week or 2 weeks or anything like that. That's never happened. So I'm glad you love it. I'm glad you've enjoyed it, man. Like it's sometimes it's with technology, with a user error, with me learning this and learning digital, learning live. I'm not someone who goes live very often on digital. Of course, I'm live on the radio. There's been hiccups for sure, but I'm really proud of what has been established with 40 Days and 40 Nights. We've had some kick-ass guests. I think I've given you guys some kick-ass moments, some funny moments, some serious moments, some entertaining moments. My whole there are so many reasons for this. I always joke that, you asked me why I started 40 Days and 40 Nights. I would sound like the Joker in The Dark Knight. When you ask him how he got these scars, he'd give you a different answer every time. There are so many answers I can give you in terms of why I started 40 Days and 40 Nights, because there are legitimately multiple reasons. One of the reasons, 100%, was because of an obligation I felt to fill the void, even in the smallest way, that was gone from Maggie and Perloff, the iteration on Infinity Sports Network not being on the air. The community, how much love they showed us over our entire time together in the mornings, but especially during the last weeks of the show and the last days of the show, the personal messages and all the things, I felt like I knew that there was an audience that still yearned for content from someone from the show. And for me, I was like, I know Maggie and Pearl, when they're ready to announce something and they're ready to launch something, they will launch it. And I'll be so excited to see that happen. But until then, I got free time. I have a camera. I have a microphone. I have a laptop that is definitely angry at me for making it do this for 40 days and almost 80 shows. But I have the capabilities. Why not do something myself? And why not show, appreciation and love for the people that have supported me on their show? So you guys are the best. And that was one of the main reasons why I did this too. It wasn't just selfish reasons or for, yes, portfolio reasons, all those different things are important to me too. But a big part was I actually did feel an obligation to be like, especially that's why I'm waking up at 6 a.m. to get the show ready. Because you're like, you're off. At least you can get some real sleep. I'm like, well, I wake up so early because I'm like, you know what? Like, I ain't doing no 6 a.m. show. Plus, who the hell is? You guys are the best. You guys were rocking with us even at 6 a.m. But in theory, like, who is going to rock with me at 6 a.m. in the morning? Also, my fiance would probably kill me if I told her, hey, I'm going to do a live stream from the corner of our bedroom at 6 a.m. and you're going to have to get out of here and go sleep on the couch for 80 days or 40 days. She would literally throw me out of the apartment. So that's not happening. So I said, but you know what? They do expect us in the morning. So, okay, I can't do 6 a.m. because that's insane. 7 a.m. also is too early. But, all right, 8 a.m., I could do that. I can get my show ready for 8 a.m., 8 a.m.-ish. Now it's becoming more 8:15, 8:10, whatever. But I can get up for that, and I can be on the air when people listen to us on the air. So 8 a.m. Eastern, that's 6 a.m. Pacific, right? I did that math, right? Yeah. 8 to 5 a.m. Pacific, I'm sorry. 5 a.m. Pacific, 6 a.m. Mountain, 7 a.m. Central. Like, that's when people were listening to us on Maggie and Pearl. If that was around the time, sometimes we had our biggest audiences. So, like, let me do a time there where if you're missing us and you don't have a show you feel like you can watch your boy for a couple hours, fill in the void. And that was my hope. And that's what I hope. That's why I did it. And again, I had nothing but gratitude for you guys for rocking with me during this time. He said, I'll be upset when this stops. Maybe at least a live show every now and then. Prayers. Something will come. I guarantee you something's going to come. And like I said, I don't have a firm plan for like what that is. All I can tell you is that it will not be 2 live stream shows per day every weekday. That I can guarantee you. It will be something though. And it's not like, I'm going to be gone for like 3-4 months and I'll be back. That's not going to happen. Like I'll be making content here. And like I said, we do Hero Talk. We'll be doing more Sports Talk episodes again. There's podcasts that we do here, so that there will be content. And then there'll be some EJ thing that comes out of this. I had I'm not gonna go any further into like what I was told yesterday. There's nothing to do with Maggie Pearl, to be clear, but only because I'm still kind of working out things on my own and behind the scenes. Had a very interesting phone call yesterday. Very interesting phone call that I did not expect. And it could mean some really fun content coming with your boy maybe pretty soon. And I'm just gonna leave that there as a little teaser, cliffhanger. But I opportunity arose potentially that could be really cool. I'm really excited about that. So I'll talk about that when I can. Can't talk about it now, but because there's some more phone calls that have to be happening, and some more ideas that have to be come up with. But there's some I got a phone call that was really interesting that I'm excited to potentially explore. So we'll talk about that when we can. Big night tonight. Knicks play against the Oklahoma City Thunder, second of a back-to-back. So I don't know how they'll perform, but this is one of those finals preview moments that we've been talking about the New York Knicks, and they performed pretty well when they played these teams at home. Thunder now coming to their building. I assume Mitchell Robinson will not play because of ankle injury management. They've not played him on back-to-backs all season. He also got kicked in his ankle and was limping around a little bit last night. He did finish the game, but anytime Mitchell Robinson's limping around that ankle, you always hold your breath and you think, oh, could this be the one where he's out for 3 months? That has been his reality for the last few years. So you hope that this year, with the way they've managed him, he's been fine. This seems like a freak thing where Sandro Mamuskilishvili kicks him in the ankle and he kind of twists the wrong way. And yeah, the fact that he played the rest of the night, he was diving on the floor and stuff, seemed to be okay, which is good. But I don't know if he plays tonight. So that's a big caveat to this game as well. But still a huge game. I'll be excited about that. Also, what I'm maybe most excited about, even more than Knicks Thunder, and you're thinking, how could EJ be even more excited than Knicks Thunder? What could possibly be more exciting than that? It is the regular season, so that's a little caveat there. You know me, I'm a maniac. I care about the regular season. I am also excited because the season finale of Love is Blind is out. And believe me, we will be talking about it tomorrow. The season finale of this show I've talked about, where these singles, I mentioned them, like these two, the soccer player who was dissing Tim Howard, who said Tim Howard was a weirdo and that David Beckham was not good at soccer. He was a former All-American soccer player at Wake Forest who had multiple severe knee injuries, so his career ended before he could play in the MLS. This is the guy who also doesn't seem to have a home, and maybe seems to have entanglements with women all over the country. We're going to learn if he's going to get married. We're going to learn if the guy I talked about last night, who has legitimately one of the most beautiful women that have been on this show and seems completely uninterested in her for reasons I don't quite understand. We're going to learn if these two are going to get married. I think we have a good idea where this is going. We're also going to learn if Christine and Victor, who have been a phenomenal couple, they've had no issues. In fact, some people have complained that they're boring. Some people have wondered if they're actually like a plant, like they're so lacking any kind of confrontation, and they don't seem to be as much with the group. They seem to be filmed almost separately and oftentimes on their own. There's questions of whether or not this is actually a couple that did the experiment, got married, and they saw how much of a S show the other couples were and say, hey, let's go shoot some scenes with that other couple after they're married and just pretend like this is all new. That is a theory out there. I'm not saying it's true. That is a theory, though. We'll see if they get married. I think that is going to happen. And then, of course, we got the lovely single mom and this lovable hunk on the right side there. And we'll see if all these people get married. So trust me, we will talk about this tomorrow morning. Should I even say what I considered? I'll say this. I'll give you guys this. I left you on a huge cliffhanger before. This is a cliffhanger I won't give you. I did propose the idea of my fiance Andrea sitting in to talk about Love is Blind. We didn't come to a conclusion as to whether or not she would agree to do it. She was extremely nervous about it, obviously, because anytime you have somebody who's not used to being on camera or being in front of a microphone, they're like, no, never, no. But I just feel like, I think for the sake of like the conversations, I'm always like, I'm always evaluating my own show, how good it is, how can it be improved, how can it be better. And I appreciate you guys have rocked with me with the Love is Blind conversations, and that you've been in the comment section, you've asked me questions, and that's been great. I do think it is tough to talk about a show that maybe people aren't watching. And I'm just giving you the tick for tack of what's going on. And I think sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm telling you the stories of what's happening, but I'm really giving like opinions, or I'm really giving like feels beyond just telling you what happens. How can I improve this? The problem is I think I need another person to talk to about this. And I don't know who else would be available. I don't even know if she's going to be available on a random Thursday morning. But part of me was like, maybe Andrea could step in and we could do this and we could talk about Love is Blind. She can give her thoughts on these characters and these people. So there's a chance, I don't know how big or small, that maybe Andrea joins me tomorrow. We'll see. We will see. But we will be talking about Love is Blind. We will be talking about Knicks Thunder. But that's all for tomorrow. We got a show later tonight. So make sure you keep it locked here on 40 Days and 40 Nights. Thank you for watching Day 38. I'll be back later at 6 p.m. Be there or be square. Again, much thanks to the people in the chat. Much thanks to the listeners. Much thanks to the viewers. I'll see you in a little bit. Enjoy the rest of your hump day. See you later.